Hi there! This is a bonus video that I'm making as a follow-up to my previous one on how the full list of directors for House of the Dragon Season 3 was just revealed. Because while I was making that, the question came up in my head of who was the most prolific episode director across the entire Westeros franchise? Who did the most episodes? And then when I looked it up, I was surprised to discover that there's actually a three-way tie for first place right now. But for the first time in a long time, that might change, because House of the Dragon's Clare Kilner, with the new episodes she's doing in Season 3, is on her way to directing 7 episodes total, and thus join the very exclusive 7 Timers Club. This video is mostly trivia. I'm making it as a bonus because it's a subjective concept. A director could be very impactful with few episodes. I mean, case in point, Neil Marshall only did 2 episodes, but they were really important. He did the Battle of the Blackwater and the Battle of Castle Black. Battle of Castle Black's probably the best directed action scene they ever had in terms of the story moving compared to the larger spectacle of later ones. I mean, Marshall was already an established theatrical film director. That was the entire point. He had directed The Descent. They brought him in as a heavy hitter specifically because he'd be handling these big battle episodes. So there's still a few minor directors. I'm not going to list every single one who did like 2 in Season 5, then was never seen again and wasn't very notable. But going through this of the major ones that you might want to know of, who, we don't know if people will come back again the way Sapochnik and Taylor did. Also, why am I doing this apart from just, I like keeping track of everything? We can't really do this for screenwriters, because we had so few screenwriters on Game of Thrones. Because they didn't have a full writer's room, even though HBO begged them to. We'll give you career screenwriters. The showrunners who had no prior experience insisted, this is ours. We want it. We're not going to have outside help. And they wrote most of the scripts on a 73-episode show, which is unusual, even then, particularly now. And House of the Dragon is too early in its run to really gauge on, it's 2 seasons, 18 episodes. Can we really say, well, who wrote the most? There are more writers on it. But they don't, like I said in the other video, we're not going to find out the Season 3 writers until literally when it airs, because they don't announce it beforehand. But comparatively, for another relatively big thing of who had the most influence on this franchise, next thing is directors, and we do have listings of directors across both shows. So again, mostly for trivia, who did the most episodes? By raw episode count, starting with. The most anyone has ever done is 9. And there's a 3-way tie between Alan Taylor, Miguel Sapochnik, and David Nutter. Overall for the entire franchise, because both Taylor and Sapochnik only got up to 9 because they came back for House of the Dragon. Nutter is the only person who ever did 9 in one TV show. No one has ever gotten up to 9 yet on House of the Dragon. There's not as many seasons, of course. And again, the subjectivity of this, I think of this trivia in terms of when I go like, oh, who did the most? I'm thinking in terms of Star Trek trivia, where we have lists of these were the most prolific screenwriters on Next Gen, these were the most prolific directors on Deep Space Nine. So when there were 2 or 3 concurrent spin-offs in the 1990s, and then when they came back for the new Treks recently, like Jonathan Frakes has directed like 30 episodes across different series, is it more prestigious to have done 3 episodes across 3 spin-offs, or 3 all in one season of 1 spin-off? That's an open question, that you had a bigger influence on one, or that you sampled all of them franchise as a whole. I'm not sure, but by a wide margin, these are head and shoulders above the rest, because the next highest is 6. That these 3 men managed to get 9 episodes each for the franchise. And you can debate the internals, and I'll get to that, but these are the top ones. Well, who are the other directors? I'm not going to list everyone, but there were 6 others who did at least 4, so I will mention them. I went back to the wiki to check this. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I was curious. I wanted to see who were the particularly recurring directors for Game of Thrones, these 6 ones. Alex Sakharov and Michelle MacLaren both did 4 episodes each. The other 4 directors I'll list off each did 6. Mark Mylod, Alex Graves, Daniel Minahan, and Jeremy Podeswa. So there's 4 who did 6 and 2 who did 4. That's as high as the rest of this batch goes. So putting that in context, there's a big gap between the other semi-finalists who were up to 6 and then these 3 who managed to get 9. It is incredibly rare for any director to get more than 6. That threshold of getting up to 7, only 3 people have ever done 7, much less 9, by raw episode count. That's the first and biggest part of this. There's a couple other ways you can look at it, though, like what about longest tenure, by which I mean from when they directed their first to their most recent, perhaps not consecutively, then most consecutive seasons and most seasons overall, whether they're consecutive or not. Who has been the longest tenured director, been with the franchise for the longest stretch of time, by raw time, even if they left periodically? That award clearly goes to Alan Taylor. Because he was director on Game of Thrones Season 1. He directed Episode 9 when Ned Stark gets executed, and the Season 1 finale. And then he returned to work on Season 2, left, but later came back for Season 7. And just now came back for House of the Dragon Season 2. Consider that Alan Taylor directed the Season 1 finale, which was the first episode to ever have a live dragon in it. And then came back these many years later to direct the first ever 3-dragon fight, the Battle of Rook's Rest. Just how far we've come. I'd love if they asked that in an interview you had to direct. All right, Amelia, there's this CGI dragon on your shoulder. And then when they were hatchlings, he was also Season 2 directing them. And then coming to do the level of stuff we saw in Season 2 of House of the Dragon. Sapochnik is still a very important director, but, people they remember the big battles he did in the second half of Game of Thrones. He actually only joined Game of Thrones in Season 5. I remember the interview he gave in IndieWire right after Season 8 when he was clearly upset with Benioff and Weiss, and he remarked, particularly as the backlash to Season 8, and in a moment of candor he said, yeah, when I joined and I asked them, what's your visual style? And there's a specific question of are you using multi-camera or one camera? It was a specific question, what is your visual style? And they responded, well, we don't have one. This deep, 4 seasons into an HBO level show, and they were just delegating that to their directors or micromanaging them. My whole other thing I have that Benioff and Weiss did not understand basic cinematography. What would you expect from these screenwriters who had never really worked in television before and was a novelist? And that's why the cinematography is so much better in House of the Dragon, because they actually let the directors do their jobs, instead of some unqualified guy telling them what to do. But apart from that, Sapochnik joined in Season 5 and was with them on and off through House of the Dragon Season 1. Both before and after that, Alan Taylor was in Game of Thrones Season 1 and just recently House of the Dragon Season 2, so clearly Taylor has had the longest duration with the franchise on and off. But this brings up the question of consecutive seasons and raw season count. And again, this is kind of subjective. Is it more impressive to do 3 episodes in a single 10-episode season, or 1 episode per season for 3 seasons in a row? I mean, one or the other. I don't know which is more influenced to be there longer or to have done more of one season. And also, no one has actually done this. I'm just using this as an example for the future. Is it more impressive to do 4 consecutive seasons on an 8-season show, 4 in a row out of 8, or to take a break every other year so that you are doing Season 2, 4, 6, and 8? I don't really know. Does it matter that you didn't do them consecutively if your total was higher? It's an academic point because that never really happened. But for the purposes of trivia, I wanted to know, and I checked, so let me share what I found. The reason I gave all this context. Taylor, Sapochnik, and Nutter, who have the biggest raw total episode count, All three of them worked on a total of 4 seasons each, but they weren't 4 consecutive seasons. None of them had a stretch of 4 consecutive seasons, so each of them has done 9 episodes, spread across 4 non-consecutive seasons. It's evenly matched. As for consecutive seasons, let's turn back to that. None of these 3 ever did more than 2 in a row. Because Taylor did seasons 1 and 2 of Game of Thrones, Sapochnik didn't come back for season 7. That's when Taylor came back, and then left again. Sapochnik did seasons 5, 6, and 8, and I don't know if season 8 to House of the Dragon season 1 would count as consecutive. Academic point, because he had already done 2 in a row, so it's not like it would have broken his own record anyway. Nutter, meanwhile, worked on seasons 2 and 3 back-to-back, then 5, then 8. So of these 3 top directors, they never worked on more than 2 in a row. Well, what about those other 6 directors who did at least 4 episodes overall? Daniel Minahan worked on season 1 and season 3, non-consecutive because he wasn't in season 2. Michelle MacLaren and Alex Graves both worked on seasons 3 and 4. 2 seasons back-to-back, 2 consecutive, but they never came back again. That was their total. So it doesn't outmatch what Taylor and Sapochnik did. Here's where things do change. Mark Mylod and Jeremy Podeswa directed 6 episodes each, and across seasons 5, 6, and 7 consecutive. So the record for most consecutive seasons in a row is actually not held by the top trio, but by Mylod and Podeswa doing fewer episodes. The whole, like I said, apples, oranges, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And lastly, Alex Sakharov is an odd case because he did technically work on the show for 4 consecutive seasons, seasons 1 through 4, and he helped establish the feel of the show, but he was only fully credited as a director seasons 2 through 4. Season 1, he was a cinematographer. So that doesn't officially count. That officially no one has ever done 4 consecutive seasons. The record is 3. Now let's turn to House of the Dragon, which we just found out the season 3 list of directors for, and that Clare Kilner is the only director returning from seasons 1 or 2. Even by the end of season 2, Kilner was already top of the list for directing the most episodes of this specific TV series, because she did 3 in season 1 and 2 in season 2. She's up to 5. No one else did more than 3. Sapochnik left after 3. Patel did 1 in season 1, then 2 in season 2. That's 3. Kilner is the only one who's done 5 as of the end of season 2. Season 3 has 4 directors for an 8-episode season, and we can assume each of them is going to direct another 2 episodes. 5 plus 2, Kilner is set to, by the end of season 3, be only the 4th director in this entire franchise to have directed 7 full episodes, thus joining the 7 Timers Club. There are 2 other directors returning from season 2, but they were not in season 1, so if they add 2, because they both did only 1, Perec and Perister, they're only going to reach 3 by the end of season 3. So, how does that match up with all of the records? The only ones who have managed to do more than 7 all later went on to do 9. Taylor, Sapochnik, and Nutter. None of them ever did 3 consecutive seasons, though, so Kilner is also now only the 3rd director to ever do 3 consecutive ones. Bit more speculative, but I'll cover this quickly. What if Kilner comes back for season 4 and adds another 2 episodes? Well, she might not, because we thought maybe Patel would come back, ultimately didn't, but we hope if Kilner comes back for season 4, adding another 2 episodes, she will get 9 episodes, and thus be in a 4-way tie for most episodes ever. Though it would be a higher proportion for this show. I mean, Nutter has set the record for 9 on one show. She would match Nutter's record for House of the Dragon, but Nutter directed 9 out of 73 episodes. Doing the math on that, he directed about 12% of Game of Thrones, about 1/8. But assuming she comes back for season 4, Kilner will have directed about, 4 times 8 is 32 plus 2. Out of 34 episodes, she'll have directed 9, which is, doing my math here, 26.5%. By the end of season 4, which you're saying is the last season, Kilner will have directed 1/4 of House of the Dragon, and far and away more than anyone else, by raw count and proportion. But that's a ways off, so that's getting ahead of ourselves. We don't know, maybe something will happen, but just with the season 3 news alone, Kilner is now going to be only the 4th director to ever reach 7 episodes. And I was wondering what to call this, and at first I was calling it the 9 Timers Club, and I went, for God's sake, don't set the bar so high. We're not going to have that many more people anyway, that the other 3 are all tied at 9, but they already did, no one else has even done 7. You've seen that the other 4 directors all got up to 6 and stopped, so I figured, for 2 things. First, hardly anyone would ever reach 7 anyway, and second, 7 is a good number, resonant with this franchise because of the Faith of the Seven and everything. So I was thinking of what to call this and said, the 7 Timers Club, in direct reference to SNL, Saturday Night Live. That I know I have international viewers here, that it's been a running joke on Saturday Night Live for at least 30 years, that if anyone has hosted at least 5 episodes of Saturday Night Live, they had this whole ceremony where they go, you've joined the 5 Timers Club, where you get to go to the exclusive back room and have this custom smoking jacket, and mistreat all the other cast members because you're above them now. So I thought that SNL has the 5 Timers Club, we get to have the 7 Timers Club. And should we send Kilner a custom jacket or something? I'm being completely serious that this so rarely happens, only the 4th time ever. Who knows when it'll happen again? That should fan channels get together and send it to Westeros.org, who can in turn pass it on to Martin, who can pass it on to whoever, that I think we should get a custom jacket to mail to Clare Kilner to give her at the wrap party for this season, that you have officially joined the ranks of the 7 Timers Club, only the 4th ever to do so. I think that would be a nice gift for her.